So good evening, everybody. We continue where we left off in the middle of the Sharblat, middle of the gateway into Tanya, as we explained the previous class. Um, First of all, why we're learning this Sharblat, why we're giving it the same attention again, because this is the Alter Rebbe himself wrote this word for word, and together with that, and in the same spirit, the Alter Rebbe is explaining the purpose of the entire writing the Tanya. The entire compilation of the Tanya is based, he's giving the reason, and he's telling us what is the objective of writing this important Sefer Tanya. So in the Alter Rebbe's words, is to explain that pasuk Yikarev Elecha Hadavar Ma'ed B'fichol V'Vavchal Ha'Seisei. So this is where we left off in the previous class. You can see this class. And hopefully the future classes on this very website, the tanyaonline.com website. It was established in a way that it's easy to access. It's easy to follow. It was established with a separate scroll bar with a text, and anything we'll be able to perfect it, we will try. We'll make an effort. Those who are involved, so we left off last week. The Alter Rebbe explains. I'm trying to see where the words that we left off at. So it's right in the middle of Levayit Heitev, Miyusad al Pasuk. That we left off last class was Alter Rebbe asked the question, what does it mean Kikorev Elecha Davar Ma'id? In other words, he says the Tanya is based on this pasuk Yikarev Elecha Hadavar Ma'ed B'fichol V'Vavchal Ha'Seisei. In Alter Rebbe's words, he's explaining us how it's carried. What does the pasuk say? That the Torah is close. We'll just add there's different pirushim meanings in this very pasuk. What is close? There's those commentaries say it's the mitzvah of tshuva, which the pasuk speaks about in that context. But in the overall, one explanation doesn't contradict the other, because it does also refer to the entire Torah. And the Torah is telling us that it's close to you. Torah is close to you, not only attainable to you, but it's close to you. Ma'id, not only just regularly close to you, but very close to you, in your mouth, in your heart, and Lasei refers to action, which is generally thought, speech, and action. And the question Alter Rebbe asks, how could you say it's close, and more so, very close? As we explained in the last class, saying that, if you say that Torah, you ought to do it because this is what we're here for. We're here to serve Hashem. And Hashem gives us a Torah and says, serve me via the Torah. In other words, do what I'm asking you to do. Stay away from this I said I'm asking you not to do. And so too when it comes to speech. Speak the words that I ask you to speak, prayer, Torah, and do not speak this which I ask you not to speak. And so too in thought, and so on. But Hashem says clearly that we have to invest our thoughts into the service of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and when it comes, and Hashem says in the leisus, in the negative, do not entertain your thoughts with this which Hashem says, I say not to entertain your thought with, and so on. So we have to do, because this is what we were created. I was created to serve my master. Fine, granted. But how could you say it's close? We all know that, on the surface, we think about our commitment to Torah and to live a life of Torah. As we mentioned in the last class, the living a life of Torah is not just, I have a pair of tefillin, I put it on every day, and I have a mezuzah on my door, and all my doors perhaps. I have a lulav and esrog for Sukkot, I eat matzah on Pesach. Torah, living a life of Torah, is so much more than that. It's that, granted, understandably, it is that, but much more than that. It's aligning our thought, speech, and action perfectly with the thought, speech, and action of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. In other words, the way the Eibishter wants us, the way Hashem wants us to do, speak, and think. The way the Shulchan Aruch, which again Hashem expressed, or the Hashem's Ratzin, Hashem's desire comes via Torah, via the Shulchan Aruch. And we are meant to align our thought, speech, and action in the entire 24 hours with Hashem's thought, speech, and action, with the way Hashem thought, speech, and action is meant to be. In other words, the way Hashem wants a thought, speech, and action of a Yid to be. And that's, to say that's close, again, to say that we are meant to do so, again, because Anini Vreisi L'Shamash Eskeni, I'm here to serve my master. Excuse me, or more so the other version. Excuse me, Ani Loini Vreisi Elo L'Shamash Eskeni, my whole reason for existence is solely to serve my Creator. So therefore I have to submit myself to Shulchan Aruch, I have to submit myself to the Torah, to the way that Hashem wants me to live. It's fine. But how could you say that whole message is close? And not only close, it's very close. It doesn't seem that close. It's attainable, but it doesn't seem that it's something which you can say it's it is close, meaning to say that wherever I turn around, I'm compelled to live a life of Torah mitzvahs. No, I have to make an effort. There's challenges and obstacles, and many challenges, many obstacles, from within and without. In other words, within the system of the person, out of the system of the person, as we all know it far too well. Starting from our body and our animal soul, which have different sets of interests and inclinations and desires and lusts and so on and so forth. And we have to overcome that, and we have to say, no, we're here to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu, despite what you want to indulge in. I'm here to tell you what to do and to live a life, again, of Torah, live a life the way it's aligned with the way Hashem wants a Yid to live. Also fine. But to say that it's close meaning to say that this is what it's all about, meaning to say that it's something that I'm automatically, when you say it's close, to say, for example, someone to eat or to have a good drink, or just simply even a good cold cup of water in a hot day. That's close because I'm motivated. The person's motivated to eat, to sleep, and so on and so forth. This comes natural. That's the term of closeness in this context. Close is obviously not in physical proximity, but this is something which I appreciate. Is this which is close to me, close to my heart, close to my mind. But when you speak about Torah, I will do Torah. I will live a life of Torah. But how could you say it's close? Asks the Alter Rebbe. And more so, ma'id, very close. And we know Torah is Hashem's word. And because Hashem's word, every word, every nuance of Torah is written by Hashem. Hashem dictates the Moshe. In other words, it's written by Hashem with maximum precision. And there's no just, for the sake of poetic wording. It's kikorev. Hashem says it's korev, it's korev. And if Hashem adds the word ma'id, it's very close. It is very close. On the surface, we might have a difficulty with this pasuk, and this is what Alter Rebbe says. Miyusod, I'm coming to write the Tanya to explain you eichu kolavayid heitiv, to explain, and Alter Rebbe adds heitiv, thoroughly, meaning to say when you walk away from learning and living Tanya, you will appreciate, and not only appreciate, but heitiv, thoroughly, eichu korev ma'id, how Torah is not only doable, attainable, but it's korev, it's close, and I appreciate it very much, and very more so ma'id, it's very close. However, the Alter Rebbe says, b'derech harucho k'tzara, b'ezras Hashem yisbarich, in a long, shorter way, with the help of God. That's the way he concludes this, his introduction to the Tanya. Now, what is long, shorter way? So long, you can say, well, Tanya is the word, 53 chapters, just the first part. We mentioned in the previous class that there are five compartments to Tanya, and then if it's long, that's what it means. What's ktsara? What is it? Close? What does it mean to explain it in a long, shorter way? So, and we understand the long, shorter is not only in how much we have to learn. Long, shorter, for that matter, we find this term in Gemara. The Gemara says that someone wanted to test the wisdom of the children of Jerusalem, known to be wise and smart and witty and so on. So he's trying to get into Jerusalem, I believe, or to the city, And he asked the child, how do I get into the city? So the child says like this, look, if you want to go to shore the shorter way, there's a very short, easy way to get in. But in the end of the day, you'll find difficulties. In other words, in proximity, it's shorter. But not necessarily it'll be an easy experience to come into the city. Then the child responds, there's a derech arucha, there's a longer way. So in other words, you have to just invest more time to get into the city. There's a longer way, derech arucha, but nonetheless it's ktsara. It's a way that it's a smoother way to come into the city. Yiras shalim, complete fear. In other words, so this is the Gemara says, yeah, there's the ktsara, the easy way, the shorter way, but not necessarily a shorter way is the way to go. There's an advantage of taking a longer route, but nonetheless it's a smoother route. And this is what the Alter Rebbe is really telling us. In this magnum opus of the Alter Rebbe, the Tanya, there is overall many messages, vital messages, each one a strong, focused, contributing energy, or an energy or an information which is transformative, which contributes to our Avodas Hashem, our service to our Creator, and again with a perfect measurement. The more we learn Tanya, we see that Alter Rebbe just didn't add words and excitement in certain areas, but it was, as we mentioned in the previous class, a perfect manual, not with the exact dosage and the exact measurement of every message which the Alter Rebbe conveys. But in the overall, the Alter Rebbe conveys two overall ideas. One would be classified as the Ktsara, and one would be classified as the Arucha. One the shorter way, and one the longer way. Which is, again, and we will learn about it, but we'll just try to say this in brief. The Ktsara, in a short way. That the Ktsara, the Alter Rebbe, basically, the shorter way is, the Alter Rebbe says, you're a Yid. You're a Yid. Taita is close to you because you and Taita, the connection of you and Taita is not a chidush, it's not a novelty, that you have to take two ideas which are so distant from each other, opposite perhaps from each other, extremely opposite from each other, and you got to start bringing them together. But by nature, by definition of what these two entities are all about, they don't perfectly fit. There's no symmetry between them. But the truth is the opposite. The Yid and Taita are essentially one. And why so? Simply, the Yid is a part of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The Taita is a part of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. A Yid is a chelik of the Kamimal. As Alter Rebbe will begin in the second chapter. A Yid is a part of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And he adds mamish. That's mamish the way it is. Taita is Anechi Hashem Elikecha. The Gemara says Anechi, first words of the Aseres HaDibros. In other words, the first time Hashem formally exposed himself to Am Yisrael in a way, again, with that connecting Am Yisrael to him as a nation of Yidden abiding by Hashem's Torah, was by Matan Torah. And by Matan Torah, it started with Aseres HaDibros, the Ten Commandments. The first word of the Ten Commandments, Anechi Hashem Elikecha. I am Hashem your God. The Gemara says Hashem began precisely with the words Anechi to tell us that Ano Nafshi, Anechi is an acronym of Ano Nafshi Ksavas Yehovas. I, my soul, I placed it in Torah, I gave it into Torah, and I gave it to you. This is me. You want me? Learn Torah. The Torah is essentially HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The Yid is a chelik of the Kamimal. So it's not only two kind of things which can easily come together, similar personalities, as they say. Torah and the Yid are essentially one. How much is it? And therefore, it's Ktsara. It's just simple. And Alter Rebbe will explain this in Tanya, of what the core essence of a Yid is, what the core essence of Torah is. This is what Alter Rebbe says. Levayit, I'll explain you. But the Ktsara, just as a fact, you have an Hashem, and Hashem is a part of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The Torah is ultimately HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And you, in essence, you're one. Just live a life of Torah. Therefore, it's Karev. It's very easy. It's very close. And Alter Rebbe explains it to us in a way that this Ktsara, in other words, Ktsara in this context, Ktsara is like matter of fact. This is the way it is. As he will explain us, this Ktsara idea just not only Karev. I don't know where else to go. Teda is chayenu v'rechameinu. Teda is our life, our respiration. And how can I think of anything other than a life of Torah? I want to be part of it because this is who I am. Ketzara, again, matter of fact. How much does a Yid love HaKadosh Baruch Hu? We'll tell you, Ketzara. Yid has an innate love to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, an inherent love to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And when you think about innate, inherent, where's the Ketzara idea? The Ketzara means that this is a matter of fact. This is the way it is. How many times you breathe today? Breathe? I don't count. I don't pay attention to it because I don't make a fuss about it. It just is. Because if a human being doesn't breathe, he expires. So his whole being is about, in other words, breathing is just part and parcel of who he is as an is. In other words, as a human being, as a live human being. Because the moment he stops breathing, he just doesn't exist. That's Ketzara. Ketzara means it's a matter of fact. How much a Yid have. And back to the Yid, how much a Yid love the Eibishter? What do you mean, how much does a Yid love the Eibishter? He doesn't have to attain and reach a love to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He is part of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. What else does he love? He loves HaKadosh Baruch Hu. As Lashon Al Tirah, it's Ava Hativis, it's natural and inherent love the Yid has to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So that's the Ketzara. It's just a matter of fact. How much a Yid fears HaKadosh Baruch Hu? Well, he has a neshama, which neshama is part of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And therefore, as Al Tirah says, the neshama in the third chapter, the neshama is comprised of 10 spheres, 10 faculties of wisdom, understanding, knowledge, love, fear, chesed, gvura, kindness, severity, discipline, and so on, the other midas, which is again part of the neshama. So the neshama expresses love, obviously to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Neshama expresses fear, reverence, obviously to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's it. This is the way it is. This is the Ketzara. Matter of fact. And Al Tirah himself explains it to us later in Tanya, starting from chapter 18. Arguably, that's the time when Al Tirah really lays the foundation of this Ketzara information. Ketzara means, say, that matter of fact, this is who you are. And therefore, Torah is Karev. It's not only Karev, not only close, but Ma'id. The only deficiency of this Ketzara is that because it's just a matter of fact, because it's inherent, because it's innate, not necessarily is it always in a state of manifestation, always in a state of expression. You'd say, "Oh, I'm part of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and therefore I have an innate inherent love to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, so I'm always passionate with HaKadosh Baruch Hu." No, not necessarily. We find it, for example, in the same case of, which is really truly similar, a child and a parent. A child has an innate love to his parents, a very strong love, but not because it's not a love that it has to attain. This is who he is because he comes from both of his parents, so he's inclined to be together. In other words, he has an innate drive to his parents. Call it love to his parents, but when you look at the child in his 24 hours or throughout, do you always find the child has that passionate love to his parent, especially when they grow up? Not necessarily. Because it's so part and parcel of who they are. Therefore, this in itself is the reason why many times it does not come to a state of manifestation. It's not manifest, it's not passionate. There's Lashon Al Tirah, because it's Ava Tivis. Many times Al Tirah uses the same Lashon, the same expression. It's a natural love. Al Tirah writes it's a hidden love. Many times he uses the same, he says the same term, both terms together, because really one is dependent on each other. Because it's innate, because it's inherent. Therefore, it's hidden. Meaning to say, not necessarily does it come out to full expression. In this case, if you think about love, which is by definition passion to this which you love, not necessarily you see the passion. Look at the child. Not always it's passionate to its creator, to its parent. It just is. This is it. So there is a potency which exists in that love, which even a passionate love which is developed perhaps doesn't have, and probably does not have. Like it says, the difference of someone's connection to a relative, a parent, a sibling, as opposed to a spouse. A spousal connection is very distinct than a relationship one has, than a connection one has to a sibling, to someone who is relative, or to parents. because this is more of a natural love, and there it's something which has been developed, and the person has to, it's an investment into another party to find the virtues and the appreciation of this other party. But once you get there, and meaning to say, this in itself says you got to get there, you got to meet the other person, learn about the other person, appreciate the other person, then if it works and it clicks and you each find each other's, in other words, the comparability of each other, meaning to say you find the virtue of each other and you appreciate each other, then there's what that does, it develops a love. But that love is a passionate love which exists between spouses, which it's meant to exist. Not all the time it's the same. Naturally it fluctuates in different levels of this expression, but there's a common denominator between that relationship, that there's always a ava, there's always a love which is passionate. How much is a fire burning in a regular day? It's more the commitment to each other, which is again a small fire of love burning between each other many times. This is the way it's meant to be. It's more because this is the nature of that relationship. And it's something which, that's the kind of the arucha idea in this example which Dr. Rebbe is giving over here. It took time. It wasn't something one was born with to connect to that other person. You never knew about that other party for an important part of your life. You met the other party. You invested, meaning to say you found out about the other party. And that triggers a love. But once that love is there, it's not dormant, it's not quiet, it's fervorous, it's passionate. Yet interesting. Or before we go on to that, the advantage, or pointing out the advantage of that derech ktsara over the arucha, this is the arucha idea which Dr. Rebbe elaborates and expands in Tanya. That I will explain you step by step in this manual with this important pattern how to ultimately appreciate HaKadosh Baruch Hu in a way that would ignite a passionate and fervorous love in your heart towards HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And this is again many steps and many chapters, or the behind the many chapters, or many chapters deal with it directly, especially later on, the Lameds, towards the Mems, and so on in Tanya. And then the 30th, in other words, 30 and on, and a chapter like 32, 33 as an example, or later, Alter Rebbe, 40, 45, 46, Alter Rebbe takes us through a whole derech, which means a whole way, and with a whole pattern, which certainly would be classified as arucha. It's lengthy, but it's something that you have to put your mind to it. You have to put your concentration to it. You're meeting up with something, some entity that on the surface, when we're dealing with that arucha process, it's not something you were accustomed to. But once you get involved, you start appreciating the lukus, the divine, and the way the Alter Rebbe presents it to you, a fire turns on, and a yid could have a true passionate love to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, passionate fear of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and so on. And this seems to be, when you think about the arucha dimension, seems to be really has the edge over the ktsara, because this is something that I develop a passionate love. It's not just the innate, natural love I have to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And as such, is there a virtue over the ktsara, over the arucha, presented in Tanya? And the answer is obviously. Go back to the example. Spouses can disconnect in the end. Even according to Torah, according to civil law, according to the way it is, there's the concept of divorce. One can divorce a spouse. A child can never divorce his parents. Parents can never divorce a child. A sibling can never divorce a sibling. There will always remain a connection between the two. And the reason for this is where the advantage of the innate, the matter-of-fact love has its grand virtue over a love which was developed, because this is what it really is. Children are productions of their parents, so they are part and parcel of their parents. And therefore they have an inclination, they have a love towards their parents. If it's not such a fervorous love, the love is not such a passionate love, even though at times perhaps it is, but nonetheless, it's that the passion is always limited in its expression, understandably. This is the way it's meant to be. Siblings, it's meant to be limited in its expression. But nonetheless, because they're siblings, they're part of the same they're part of the same parent. And namely, when it comes to parent and children, it just is. And therefore, because it is an extension of them, and hence the love, the connection is innate, the love, the connection is inherent, it's impossible to disconnect. As opposed to the spouses, because it's a developed relationship, and true, it ignites a fervorous and passionate connection, the way it is by spouses. Nonetheless, it's not on core essential levels, and therefore there can be a disconnect. Rahman al-Islam, naturally. We're not talking about the idea, the way, again, we add Rahman al-Islam when we speak about the concept of divorce, understandably, but conceptually, divorce is a total disconnect. Each one goes on their own way and becomes connected to another party, different party completely. And in other words, a total disconnect of the previous party, the previous experience, etc. And what happened to that whole fervorous, passionate love and connection? Answer, it was something which was developed. It's not inherent. And anything which is developed one way or another is on the surface. It's not beneath the surface. And therefore it can be disconnected. And this is the virtue of the Ketzara, of that information that Alter Rebbe shares with us. The connection with the Yid and HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which would lead to the Karev Elecha Hadavar Ma'id, that being Torah, being close, very close to you. Because this is who you are. This is what Torah is. You and Torah are essentially one. That's a matter of fact. That's the Ketzara way, which ultimately it can't be severed. The relationship with the Kodesh Baruch Hu not only is kara, but it's impossible to be severed. There's a famous expression of the Alter Rebbe, not in Tanya, a Yid nicht will und nicht kann sein abgerissen von der Kodesh Baruch Hu. A Yid, not he wants to, and he can disconnect himself from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And this is the message from Yud Ches, basically, till Chavav, 18th, till the 26th chapter. In other words, up to the 26th chapter. Namely, again, it's all, every Perek ultimately connected, it goes beyond, but namely this message, that a Yid, by definition, not only wants to connect and Torah is close to him, he's ready to sacrifice his entire life for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. This is who he is, without a decision making, without a formal making, without dating HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and finding out about HaKadosh Baruch Hu and seeing how much he's ready to give up his life. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, no. Before that, who you are one with Hashem, and therefore you're ready to expire for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. As the Rebbe points out in our history of millions and millions of people, Yidden, unfortunately, for a difficult history, hundreds of thousands, again, probably millions, gave up their life for HaKadosh Baruch Hu, literally expired for the sake of God. With the Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, it wasn't the scholarly, it wasn't those who invested their minds, their hearts, in their relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It was the simpleton, meaning to say there was this simple Yid, people who didn't have much knowledge, children, women, again, not in pointing out women in a derogatory manner, and just in other words, they're not vested in that scholarship like grand scholarly, pious Talmid Chacham and so on. They also gave up their life for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Classically, Chana is a classic story of Chana and her 7 sons. It wasn't because of their knowledge or their relationship or their investing in the relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's just that Hashem is our neshama, we are Hashem, and Hashem is us, and therefore a Yid, by definition of who he is, he's ready to expire, literally, not just do something for Hashem, connect to Hashem. He is part and parcel of Hashem, and therefore he is ready to give up his life, his or her life, totally, in absolute manners for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Because it's not shaykh, it's not even possible any disconnect. Because the love runs very deep of the Yid and Hashem. So the Kored Ma'id, the way he expressed itself through the Ktsara, has definitely an advantage over the Arucha. As an example, as an explanation. The example of, again, sibling, or namely son and child, and so child and parent, and an explanation over here, which the Alter Rebbe gives, namely in these chapters 18 to 25, including 25. And obviously, then there is the disadvantage, because it not necessarily, and especially when good times, regular times, does, the Yid abides by Torah mitzvahs, and I must say every Yid has something there. The fact that he does everything what Hashem wants him to do and stays away everything what Hashem does not want the Yid to do. Obviously, this says there's always a connection, but nonetheless, that can fade away, or that not necessarily is the passion of that love, or in other words, the indication of that love, the demonstration of that love is not always on the surface. It's not always in a state of expression, manifestation, fruition. That's where you have the advantage of the Arucha, the investing. Again, in the later towards in the later chapters of Tanya, so Rebbe takes us step by step and has us appreciate the divine godliness, Torah, mitzvahs, and so on, which creates a passionate love to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And a passionate love is a passionate love. A passionate fear and reverence is a passionate fear and reverence. Meaning to say, it's not, as if in Yiddish would say, gemachte. We're talking about things which are real, true, and tangible. Meaning to say that when you learn Tanya, and you appreciate Tanya, you internalize the message of Tanya, the Yid, as a human being, without becoming a tzaddik, he spoke about this in the last class about the Alter Rebbe saying, no, this is the Sefer HaBeinanim, not a tzaddikim. But the average person could truly develop a passionate love to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, like someone loves another thing, a party, another person with, there's true passion. A person could truly develop a passion to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's extraordinary. And that's Arucha. It's a longer way, but a person could get there. And when you get there, and you live again, Alter Rebbe, the Tanya is able to ignite the true Ava, the love and the fear, and other expressions, the way the Yid would, the ability, or the Yid would emote with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, then the Torah mitzvahs, which he consequent to these, his love and fear, performs, means to say applies and abides by his learning Torah, doing mitzvahs, is obviously correct, it's close, he's excited about it, he's passionate about it. He lives it in a different way, not only like oi and they and what else do I have to do and so on. He's excited about it because, again, it's predicated on a exciting and then fervorous love of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Love for HaKadosh Baruch Hu, fear of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Have a wonderful night.